All right, so I'm going to do just a quick introduction to reading content in from the console, from the user, whether that's numbers or strings or whatever. We've already looked at how to write to the console, how to print to the console using the system.out.print. Now we're going to learn how to read stuff in from the console. There's actually a couple ways to do this. The way I'm going to show you today is using something called the scanner in Java. And the first thing we need to do in order to even think about using this is to import a utility, a package into Java that includes the scanner class. And so this little command, import java.util.scanner, is bringing in a package from your development environment that includes the class scanner and all of its functionalities. This may seem like a lot to do to just read in content from the console. In Python, this was just a single command that you could execute. You didn't have to import it from anywhere. You didn't have to type a bunch of nonsense. But we have to remember that because Java is an object-oriented language from the ground up, everything you do in Java requires calling a method of some class. In this case, the class is called scanner. And you have to import that class into your program before you use it. One of the things that I do every time I'm learning a new language is I create a sort of database for myself of all the syntax that I'm going to forget and I'm going to want to copy from somewhere. If you took the 221 course last semester, that sheet that I gave you as a cheat sheet for quizzes and exams, it had examples of here's how you do all the math commands, here's how you do an if statement, here's how you do a for loop, here's how you do a while loop. I create that for every language that I know. One of the things that I would put in such a grab bag of code would be all of these import statements that you need in order to invoke all these various commands that are not part of the main Java install. So import java.util.scanner, you're going to have to put at the beginning of your code every time you intend to read code in from the user. In order to actually do that, well, first let's just prompt our user. This is just the empty shell of a Java program. What the book I was reading yesterday referred to as the plumbing of a Java program. It declares your main program as being a class, and your main method of that class is what you're actually running, so your code goes in between these curly braces. I have actually commented the curly brace that ends the main method and then the curly brace that ends the my program class, just because when there's 50 of these, it's sometimes hard to tell which one is which. So we're going to just write to the console, welcome to your first Java program, and then we're going to prompt the user for their name. So let's just do something like this. System out print, please enter your name. Let's go ahead and run that. It's not reading anything in yet. It's just printing to the console. I just want to make sure everything's working. Good. So this is essentially a hello world, identical to the first example we did. Now, if we want to read code in from the console, the first thing we need to do is to create an object of the scanner class. That looks like this. Scanner input equals new scanner parentheses system.in. That is a lot of stuff to type just to say, hey, I'd like to read some stuff in from the console. What is it actually doing? It's creating an object of the scanner class. I'm naming that object input. You can put whatever word here you want. You could call it user input. You could call it read from console. Some programs you'll see just call it scanner with a lowercase s. You might say, isn't that confusing if the class is called scanner to call an object that's an instance of that class also scanner? It's a little confusing, but because you only have one of these in your program, it's okay for them to have the same name. Because Java is case sensitive, it doesn't care that one a scanner with a lowercase s is a different thing from a scanner with an uppercase s. I'm going to call it input, just to show you that you can call it whatever you want. So what is this doing? What is this line of code doing? It's creating an instance of the scanner class called input, and every time I want to get input from the console, I am invoking a method of that input object. It's a lot of vocabulary for those of you who haven't taken an object-oriented programming course before. For our purposes now, this is just what we have to do to read in content. We don't have to understand all of that. So what I need to do if I want to read something in is I have to, first of all, create a variable to put that content into. So I'll call it username. If I'm using this variable for the first time in Java, I have to declare it. I have to declare what type of variable it is, so it's a string. So I'm going to create a string type variable called username, and then I'm going to put the value of that variable equal to, oops, I'm going to call my scanner object, oops, and its next line, parentheses. Okay. So the next line method is a method of the scanner class, and my input object that I created is a scanner, and I'm calling the next line method of that input object. Again, that's a lot to have to type just in order to get input into the program. If you don't know this vocabulary of objects and instances and methods yet, it's okay. We'll get there. And maybe I'll just post a video that is, here's what all this stuff means for those of you who haven't encountered it before. For now, this is just code that we can memorize how it works. So username equals input dot next line. Now, when I run the code, it should just kind of wait. It should print the stuff and then wait. And then I hit return, and then the program ends because it doesn't do anything with that. Let's have it do something with that. Let's just have it print system.out.print hi, and then username. Okay, so this should print the string hi. Notice that strings in Java are contained in double quotes. You can't use single quotes like you could in Python. And then username is now the variable which should hold the name I just gave it. Let's run it and make sure that that works. Okay, so I've successfully read a string from the console into my program. It now lives in the username string, username variable. Let's prompt it for a number instead. Hi username, and then in system.print we use plus signs, not commas, to separate our substrings. A little bit different from Python, just something you gotta memorize. Put an exclamation point, and then we'll have it ask a question. How old are you? Question mark. And then we gotta end that quote, and that should be good. Okay, let's run that again. My name is Dave. Dave, how old are you? Now let's have it read a number from the console to put in my age. So I'm going to create another variable. It's going to be an integer variable, and I'm going to call it age. Oops. Int age. And I'm going to put into that variable a value from the console. So I'm going to call my scanner object, which I've called input. And I'm going to read something from the console, but I'm going to tell the scanner object that what you will be reading is an integer. by using the method nextInt. Okay. So notice up here, I'm reading a whole line from the console and putting it into a string. Here, I'm just reading whatever integer is typed in next, and I'm putting it in for the age. So a little bit different method for whether you're reading whole strings, parts of strings, integers, floats, whatever. You have to tell the method what it is reading from the console. So I want to know that something has happened, so I'll just copy this code because I'm lazy about typing. I'll just type something like wow, and then username. Username. And then another substring, and then a comma. You are space, and then my next substring will be the age variable, and then plus, and then another substring, years old, exclamation point, end quote, parentheses, semicolon. I think that's right. Got to make sure you got the right number of quotes, the right number of parentheses. I like putting spaces around my plus signs even though you don't really have to. Let's run that and see if that works. Please enter your name, Dave. Oh, too many capitals in there. That's fine. How old are you? 55. There you go. Wow, Dave, you are 55 years old, exclamation point. So we can dig into the documentation of the scanner class to see all the different methods it has, next line, next int, next float, whatever. And we'll do that as needed as we go, using this functionality of Java. The last thing that it's a good idea to do anytime you open a scanner is to close it at the end of the program. In fact, you can close it anytime in the program you know you're not going to need to use it again. This is a good idea because it prevents you from accidentally writing over data that you didn't want to write over. It is also for if you're worried about system memory and things like that in real world programs, which we're not. Closing that scanner object frees up any memory that was using to run that process. So input.close is just a good thing to do. Good idea to close your scanner object when done. And it keeps that from being open in your program. Okay? So that's, I think, all I'm going to say about that. There actually is another set of commands for reading content in from the console that I might make a separate video about, or I might just let you guys encounter on your own, or I might just use it someday when I don't feel like using scanner. I want to just show you something different. But the scanner will always work, and it's a good introduction to how it works to call a method of a class in Java using some of the built-in stuff. And we can come back later when we talk more about object-oriented programming. We can understand this vocabulary a little bit better. But for now, this is how we will need to read stuff in from the console. And we'll need to do that a lot in the next couple of programs. Okay, so I'll go ahead and stop that there.